Brad Underwood's patience has been rewarded. A big time get out of the transfer portal. Terrence Shannon Jr. commits to Illinois, the Chicago native, the Texas Tech junior wing. He's played 3 years at Texas Tech, averaged 11 points during that time, but he's a high flyer. He's a great shooter from three. He's a really good defender. He's a big time addition. I'm Jeremy Werner. He's Joey Wagner. Joey, Illinois fans are fretting a little bit about what could be. And Terrence Shannon, this seems like it's kind of been a roller coaster of recruitment. Seemed like last week everyone had him pegged for Michigan. He was on the Ann Arbor campus there. And Illinois obviously was involved, but boy, he checks a lot of boxes of what this team needs.
It does. I mean, you know what you've got in the freshman guards, and his entrance to this program doesn't really hinder the development that Illinois is going to need out of the guards. Doesn't get in the way too much of Coleman Hawkins, RJ Melendez, Dane Danger. It's like there was this gap on the wing, and Brad Underwood found the one of probably a handful of players who can play at a high enough level, who can slide in there and fill that spot. And he does what they're looking to do. He's going to shoot. He can get to the rim. I mean, we've talked about this at length, Jeremy. The lane's going to open, and you just found a gentleman who has no problem going down the lane and getting to the rim, and kind of continuing this thought of a 5-out offense with shooters and attackers, and it's the perfect fit for what Brad Underwood is trying to do. And after they didn't get him the first time around, he went to Texas Tech. Welcome to portal recruiting, baby, because you can always get him again, and here he comes.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joey. And what I've thought about is you always got to keep those relationships. You can't burn bridges in recruiting. I think if you're a recruit or a coach nowadays, because there can always be the second time around, and that might be the most important recruitment, but it's important to have a good foundation. Yeah, just to whiteboard this, Terrence Shannon was a top 100 prospect, Chicago native, played in the Chicago area as a prospect, and then went to IMG Academy his last year, blew up as a national recruit there. And he had great options. DePaul, he was committed to, I believe, at one point. Texas Tech obviously signed him, but he came to Illinois for an official visit. Illinois really, really wanted him. Is a 6'6" guy who could shoot it a little bit at that point, but just athleticism, length, things that Illinois has needed the last couple of years, and certainly addressed last offseason by adding RJ Melendez and Luke Goody, but Melendez especially. Shannon comes in as a proven commodity on a team that sorely needs experience, right? I mean, 2 years ago was all Big Ten third team, averaged 12.9 points, 4 rebounds, shot 36% from three. His production went down a little bit this year, averaged 10.5 points, but shot 38% from three, close to 39%, Joey. One of the top guards in the country in terms of percentage of finishing at the rim, shot 77% at the rim. He's a high flyer. Like if there's an NCAA dunk contest, I think Terrence Shannon would be in that. And he's a high impact defender. I think for Illinois, he'll guard one of the best players on the court. The one concern you would have is, Terrence Shannon was on a really good team. He decides to transfer, enters the transfer portal basically as Texas Tech leaves from the Sweet 16. But he had some back injury this year, had a nagging back injury. You wonder how that'll impact. Is he a guy that's going to try and get his all the time? I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think his role at the NBA is going to be a 3-and-D with athleticism, can slash a little bit. But man, on paper, this looks fantastic for a team that has nobody coming back that's averaged double digits, nobody coming back that you can count of. That's our lockdown wing defender. He fits both those things so well.
Yeah, I think some of the pitch, if you're Illinois, would probably have been, hey, there's going to be a chance. I know you were on a loaded Texas Tech team last year. There's going to be a chance for you to come in and go on full display here. You got to earn that chance, right? There's going to be talent around you. But obviously, everybody wants to get to the league. And now there's a chance for it seemingly on paper, Jeremy, for Terrence Shannon to put everything together, to put everything on tape that he wants to put on tape, and Illinois got minutes to go around. We have talked about this at length, and there's probably still going to add to the portal. Thank God. I will avoid a bicycle ride to any number of Big Ten cities.
But we got to address that later in the podcast, by the way.
Yes, yeah, but it makes sense, man. It makes sense for Terrence Shannon. It makes sense for Illinois. I'm sure the appeal of coming back to the state was important for him. I just think that the back injury you do have to address. I'm glad you brought it up because you have to. I mean, it did cost him some games. Did it cost him late? No. I mean, but these are all things you have to consider. It's part of transfer recruiting. You have all this stuff on tape. You have all these, different people to talk to, but you also have more of a body of, okay, what's this? And you got to get into that. But I'm assuming if Brad brought him in, there's not a high level of concern there, similar to Sky Clark and his knee. But on court, man, makes sense.
Yeah, let's talk about Terrence Shannon leaving Texas Tech, going to Illinois. Makes sense from returning home, playing close to home. Makes sense, I think, from an NIL perspective. I think there's a much better chance of cashing in your home state, in a big state, in a basketball-hungry program. And, a place like Champaign that, isn't Lubbock, right? In kind of in the middle of nowhere in Texas, kind of in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, but it's closer to a lot of things than Lubbock. So I think that makes a lot of sense from that perspective. I think it makes sense from a usage perspective. I don't think Terrence Shannon's going to get the ball in his hands and create all the time. And that's why I think this fits. Sky Clark and Jaden Epps still look like they are going to be given the keys to the car. But Shannon's going to have a lot of opportunity to score here, right? Like he was kind of a piece in a 5, 6, 7 deep piece at Texas Tech. He is the most proven scorer. He is the most, the guy I would say, Joey, I feel best about scoring 12 points per game next year for Illinois, right? I think RJ Melendez can be that. He's got to show he can do it. Coleman Hawkins could be that. Sky Clark, Jaden Epps eventually could be that. But Terrence Shannon, I would plug in for 11 plus, 12 plus points a game next year. And he can showcase that at Illinois. And I think he fits for exactly what Brad Underwood wants to do defensively, offensively, getting out and running, pushing the pace, being aggressive on defense. I think it could be a very good showcase for him personally. He was a guy that came into the year with potential NBA draft buzz. And I think he could, play himself into the conversation as a top 60 prospect next year if everything goes well with Illinois.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Jeremy. And we know Brad wants to play faster. And to your point, he probably is the most likely to score 12 points in a game. And that also comes with the reality, somebody has to. Illinois needs to find people to step up and score. We think they have those pieces, but he immediately becomes the most proven college basketball scorer on the roster. Not the best potential maybe, but with Coleman Hawkins and RJ Melendez, but he's done the most in college basketball to this point right now on the Illinois basketball roster. And again, we knew that was going to happen as you see this transition of power. Does that work in the Illinois basketball players? In terms of players, I mean, you kind of move on from some of those other guys, a new era, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, and the fit is fine. I like that. I think we are going to see, as good as Kofi was, this opens up different opportunities, run 5 out, the whole deal, and Shannon can really help Illinois maximize that.
Yeah, and from an Illinois perspective, I think the word fit I keep using here because it doesn't feel like this should step on many toes. And you're always concerned about that, right? Like Coleman Hawkins' comments the other day about kind of leaving his options open based on what Illinois could add to the portal. Understandably, he doesn't want to be recruited over. He doesn't want some, Ben Vanderplas coming in and stealing his role. I get that. RJ Melendez talked about, hey, we got to keep watching what's going on. And Illinois has made clear that those two guys are kind of pieces they want to build around. But I don't think Terrence Shannon steps all over that, right? I think RJ Melendez and Terrence Shannon can play together, whether it's a small lineup for Illinois where those two are playing with, say, Jaden Epps and Sky Clark, or whether it's a big lineup where those guys are your 2 and 3. Now, RJ's got to really improve as a ball handler. That's his offseason focus. But I think we've seen shades of that. I think we've seen flashes of that, Joey, where he can kind of create off the bounce for himself, but you get two guys that can really slash to the rim. I think can have the length. And I think with Terrence Shannon, certainly the strength to finish at the rim. RJ's got to get better at that, but I think they could play off each other with a 6'3" Sky Clark or 6'2" Jaden Epps. And then you have these two long guards along with, say, Coleman Hawkins and Dane Danger, or Luke Goody and Dane Danger, or Luke Goody and Coleman Hawkins, insert Ty Rodgers into there. There's a lot of versatility to what they can do. And that's what this whole offseason is, right? Like Kofi Coburn was awesome. And you would have been better if he came back next year, right? But there's a versatility within games, within a season of what you can do now that you just couldn't do with Kofi because you had to do drop coverage with him. We also could dump it down to him. He's going to get you 20 and 10 every night, right? Like there's a huge value of that. But now you got a bunch of unproven guys, but you just have a lot more options that you can go to. That's going to give opponents some fits once this team gels, once these guys all get some experience, you'd think.
Yeah, it is. It's going to take some time to gel. I think everybody knows that. I mean, it's just a whole new group of guys to get in there and learn the nuances of each other's game. Yeah, that is going to take time. But as the president of the Coleman Hawkins Time at the Five fan club, this unlocks a lot because I think that, I mean, you're right. Think of a Clark Epps, what am I missing here? Melendez.
I mean, there's not many pieces, Joey. There's
yeah, I know.
only
It's
10
really,
guys.
but Melendez, Shannon, and Hawkins, like that's a lineup, man. That's, you want 5 out. That's 5 out, and like I just think there's so many different ways for Brad Underwood to unlock different things. You know, Jeremy, remember last year when Kofi came out and you would put an Omar Payne in there, it's almost like the same offense for a skill set that didn't exactly match. And I just think there's a lot more versatility. It's got to be fun if you're Brad and the coaching staff too, right? Like you've kind of got this blank slate of talent to build what you want to build around. Like the principles are still in place. You know what they want. But you bring in someone like Shannon and it doesn't change fundamentally probably the direction you want to go. It enhances that. Like that is what you're looking for. And it's probably part of the patience you've seen out of the coaching staff and approaching the portals. You want it to make sure it's right and it enhances the ideas and direction you want to go.
Yeah, Terrence Shannon, I'm looking at NBADraft.net. They have him 43rd in their 2023 mock and 69 on their big board. Nice. But I mean, he obviously clearly, I almost got you to spit your coffee up.
Almost got me.
That he obviously is very talented, right? And you're just adding talent. And we got to keep mentioning this, man. Like, I don't know what next year's team is going to look like. I think it could be bumpy early, right? But I think towards the end of the year, it could be pretty exciting. Similar to what we talked about with Michigan last year. But the talent accrual, like Illinois and Michigan, I think are at another level right now in the Big Ten when it just comes to the talent they are accruing year after year. You just signed what is now the number 9 recruiting class in the country with preps. And now you add Shannon, who by every measure, every outlet that I look at, whether it's ESPN, CBS, 24/7 Sports, Evan Maya, has him as a top 10 transfer prospect. ESPN has him 10, CBS has him 3. I think 24/7 Sports has him, 7, I believe. So like, no matter what you think, like he right now is the highest ranked transfer to commit to a Big Ten program. Like Purdue's going for Nigel Pack and all these Tyrese Hunter and all these guys. And Illinois is the one so far that has gotten the highest ranked transfer. And then you add Dane Danger to that. I haven't seen the updated numbers, but we now have like this overall recruiting class ranking that includes transfers, which I love because we have to do that. We have to, put that into a huge pile now and put it all together. Illinois is going to be top 5 after all this of all so far today. There'll be a top 5 recruiting haul in this class of 2022. Kudos to Brad Underwood. Kudos to Tim Anderson, to Jeff Alexander, to Chester Frazier, because even though I think next year's team is going to have a significant, I don't know about significant, but they're going to have a lower floor, right? There could be a higher ceiling just because, Joey, there's so much talent here. I mean, Isaac Trotter just texted me. They're going to have 8 top 110 prospects out of their 10 guys on the roster. So that right now, like that's a pretty impressive, talented roster they're building.
Yeah, Jeremy, it feels like we've said this for probably like really said this for like 2 or 3 years. Like they're going to bring in talent. I understand, like, and I don't mean to sound like scolding. I understand when you're watching the transfer portal go crazy and players are committing here and there and your team isn't really either mentioned. And Brad said yesterday, like, we're not going to be mentioned with every team, every player, every transfer. I understand that. Like that it's the player movement somewhere between fun if you're a fan and totally maddening. I don't know, however you want to look at it. I get it, right? Like your team isn't actively doing that, but
It's
at
it's
least
like when your
early
baseball
on.
team is kind of just sitting around, not doing anything, and all these other teams are signing guys, and you're like, well, I want that. I want that immediate gratification, and they took a little bit longer, right? But they ended up getting one of the top guys.
Yeah, it just, and I know people, run themselves in circles. What's going on? Look, I think if anything, Brad and his staff have proven like it'll be all right. They got a plan. We said this, I'm pretty sure we said this exact same thing when they got Sky Clark. There's a plan in place. The thing with Brad that you've noticed, and just where the program is, and it's deserved, and you probably have to have this in every program, you have a little bit of hubris. Like, we're Illinois. People want to come here. We'll be all right. Talented people want to come here. Could you have said that 4 years ago? Probably not. No, I would be floored. But like, you can say that now and understand that you are going to be an attractive destination, and then you factor in there's an open opportunity for a lot of positions here with this roster turnover. Like, those things factor. Like, I get it, but just take a breath. It's not, the portal's not even quote unquote closed. Like, they've got a plan. They're bringing in talent at an incredibly high level, like just a super, super high level here. It'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, there was even times like when Naheem Aline, Virginia Tech transfer, right? That Chester Frazier recruiting coach, entered the transfer portal. I'm like, oh yeah, take that guy, top 100 transfer, makes sense, fit him in, could be a solid player for you. Oh no, shooting higher. Like they're thinking, oh, we can do better, right? Like they showed some interest in him, but they are shooting high because they think they are one of the best programs in the country. They have played like a top 25 program in the country now for 3 years. They have played like a top 3 or 4 Big Ten program for 3 years consistently. And they're acting like it. They go out and get Sky Clark. They go out and get Ty Rodgers. They go out and, get a guy like Terrence Shannon. It's impressive what they've been doing. So I think you and I have said all along, I think Illinois basketball will be fine. I think most a lot of basketball fans today feel like they're going to be just fine. Of course, the question everybody's asking now, Joey, is who's next? Who's next?
No.
I would say front court, right? I think Courtney Ramey still makes a ton of sense to me. I think they're ready, and Brad Underwood is kind of, Derek Piper asked him directly, do you feel like you have a need for a veteran ball handler? I don't know if he was saying it just to lift up the freshman, or after he just added Sky Clark, didn't want to be like, hey, yeah, we're going to recruit over that guy right away for next year. But I mean, at least by his word, that doesn't seem to be the number one thing he brings up when we ask him every time we see him, what are you going to add in the portal? He keeps adding shooting and athleticism. We'll check with Terrence Shannon, and then a front court piece. And I don't think it's a front court piece to replace Coleman Hawkins. I think it's a front court piece to complement Coleman and to complement Dane Danger, who we don't know what he is yet. Like, this is fun, exciting to hear all this offseason talk about Dane Danger. I think he can be a very good player for Illinois, but he's played 9 minutes in Division I basketball. So I think Dane Danger is going to play 20 minutes, Joey. But we also thought Omar Payne would play 10, 15 minutes last year and ease some things on Kofi Coburn. And that didn't end up being the case, despite his pedigree, despite what they said in the offseason. So you just need another option, right? And Brandon Liebs seems to be saying and doing the right things to the staff, and they're saying, hey, this guy can turn into something down the line. I don't think they're counting on him next year either. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of piece they want to add there, whether it's a stretch guy, whether it's a low post guy. But I think they need somebody and can sell somebody on playing 20 plus minutes a game with Danger and alongside Coleman Hawkins.
Yeah. So my question becomes, when do you wait for this NBA draft process to play out? I think that's June 1st, if I'm not mistaken, for, you've got to make a decision in or out of the NBA. And as Brad said, there's like 250 guys for 60 picks. Right? There is going to be enough information out there for some people to return to school. And then, of course, and I'm kind of getting down a rabbit hole, but this kind of gets into what's the NCAA going to do? Are players in the next 3 days going to rush to the portal who are already in the draft? Like, this is kind of the first off season of this. It is the first off season of this timeline, and you're trying to figure out how it's all going to work and look. But so I think we know the areas. Jeremy and Terrence Shannon obviously addressed a really big one. But it's just, now I want to know when, and to caution, this could be a process if they do kind of explore that NBA withdrawal market, which I think the talent would obviously indicate that, and just the sheer numbers of people who are going to withdraw from the draft, like, would indicate that that's something that might be worth considering. So yeah, big man up front. And now it's, Jeremy, we're getting to the point I wanted to bring this up, where we know what they do recruiting wise, right? Like, I think you have more hits than misses recruiting wise. I think that's probably fair. The hits have been really pretty good hits. But now you're seeing, how do they evaluate in the portal? Omar Payne didn't work out. Dane Danger is TBD. Alfonso Plummer really worked out. We'll see. I think you and I are of the belief Terrence Shannon is going to work out based on his skill set and college productivity. Am I missing anybody? I think that's, at least in recent, not the early on, kind of rebuilding of this thing.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to include, Andres Feliz in that. He's a JUCO kid.
Yeah, I mean, you can, and obviously that worked out. So it's just part of this too. Like, now there's another thing to evaluate. How are they evaluating in the portal?
It's like in the NFL, or whatever it is, NBA. You have your personnel department for college, for the draft, and then you have your personnel department for pro, because you're scouting other teams' players. That's happening now. Right? That's what college football and college basketball has turned into.
Yeah, welcome to it, man. And it'll be interesting. Again, I think the track record of Brad and his coaching staff, you probably should err on the side of, they'll be all right. I think they're going to evaluate well. They're going to get talent well. But there are going to be instances where it just doesn't work out. You can go down the recruiting list, the high school recruiting list, where it hasn't. You can go look at Omar Payne where it hasn't. That happened. That's life in college, man.
We got to bring up, this is before the portal, I believe, but obviously before immediate eligibility. But Austin Hutcherson didn't work out because of injuries.
Sure. Yeah.
Jacob Grandison, great. It was a great addition for them. It was a different era where I think Brad Underwood wants that back, where he could sit a guy for a year and have that whole thing, because he loves that with Dane Danger. And also, when you add transfers, they're not transferring again, most likely, right? I mean, Omar Payne is, but he might have to sit out a year here. There's a huge impediment to transferring a second time, unless, again, the NCAA just grants everybody waivers. But I don't think that's always going to be the case.
Yeah, this is like the most evergreen statement. I have no idea what the NCAA's plan is. You should have no idea what it's going to be, especially, the way Brad talks. He seems to think like May 1st doesn't matter. It sounds like,
I think for the NBA draft guys, especially, because he made a great point of how the NCAA needs to line up their deadlines. May 1st is the transfer portal. I get that, right? Like, all these kids are on campus still. At May 1st, after that, they go home. A lot of things can change. And I do think there should be a deadline of when they should have to make those decisions. But then you have a June 1st NBA draft deadline. What happens if those guys want to come back and they transfer? Like, he thinks they'll get a waiver because the deadlines are different. The NCAA, and listen, their president is leaving here. They just haven't provided a lot of guidance of what NIL is, of what this waiver process is going to be. So, you don't want to hear whining, I would say, quote unquote, from college coaches of how hard this is, but it is hard, right? It is very different than what they signed up for. Do I feel bad for guys making $4 to $5 million per year? They're paid for that, right? But it is different, and it is difficult to try and put together a roster right now. And then, Joey, recruit your own roster so that you're not worried day to day leading up to May 1st, like Brad Underwood could be when Coleman Hawkins makes the comments he does of, hey, is this guy going to leave tomorrow, or do I have him next year? Like, that's a difficult place to be, but that's where we're at right now, without a lot of guidance from the NCAA, and kind of just feeling out what this era is, right? Which is basically, if you get 5 or 6 guys back every year, you probably feel pretty good.
And that feels like a win. Like 5 or 6 feels like a win. I think you're seeing it, Jeremy, in media and coaches and fans. Like, people are trying to reconcile a little bit with what the transfer portal is. Like, it's inherently different. Like, that's just the most obvious fact in the world. I'm not saying, maybe you hate it, and I'm sure today people love it, right? Because Terrence Shannon's coming to your team. There's no right or wrong, however you feel, but like, this is what it is, and it's going to be like this. And I get it. I understand the frustration. I understand seeing the guys who develop for 3 and 4 years. And an exact point for this will be provided he stays, is Coleman Hawkins, right? Like that is the exact point for what everybody loved about college athletics and player development is this kind of rise into the role we think he's going to have.
Yeah, it's kind of the same way. I think we all think about the NBA now, where you're not having a team just grow together. Not that that was always the case in history. Like, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar forced his way out of Milwaukee. Charles Barkley traded several times to teams. But like now in the post LeBron decision, these players hold the power, right? And they bounce around. And it's more about almost the players than the teams now, because the stars just kind of change teams. But that doesn't stop me from rooting for DeMar DeRozan, right? Like I might have more of an affinity for a Derrick Rose or a Joakim Noah, but I'm still rooting for my team to get that star, right? Or if you're, a baseball fan, like I love
Golden State. Sorry, no one in Golden State was upset when they had this homegrown team and you had Kevin Durant. Like I don't think people were ticked off about that. You got to find a way, Jeremy, to mix both.
Or I always have an affinity for, even though we traded for these guys as prospects, but you love seeing Yoel Moncada come through the system, or Luis Robert come through the system. But I also like adding Yasmani Grandal. I wanted my team to add Manny Machado, right? Like, so that's what it's become is, yeah, these guys are going to leave. It stinks to see a guy like Andre Curbelo not work out, or Adam Miller after starting every game, transfer after a year, even though a star role seems set for him. Like that can be frustrating, but it also allows you to add an Alfonso Plummer, to add a Terrence Shannon or Dane Danger. And I think for Illinois so far, I don't know if it's been equilibrium, or if it's even like it's been a positive for Illinois so far, but they're doing pretty well with it.
Yeah, man, it's going to take time for people to wrap their head around. I get it. I totally understand it. And I just don't think there's a right or wrong. It's however you feel about it, it's how you're going to feel. And when you lose a guy like a Brandon Podziemski that you were super excited to see how he developed and grow, you're probably going to be frustrated by it if you're a fan. But when you add a guy like Terrence Shannon, you're probably going to be pumped. Like it's a give and take. And I understand
it's an upgrade, right? Let's be honest. That's an upgrade.
Yeah, it's a proven college upgrade for sure. And I think as time goes on, will the portal slow down? Will the understanding of what it is slow down? Sure. Like there's developments and that stuff. But I mean, it is what it is. It's a new era, man. And it changes things, but you can make your team really good or continue to maintain in a hurry.
Yeah.
Like you can add people,
or you can be like DePaul and it all falls apart, right? Like, but Illinois, it's not falling apart.
Let's be honest, it's probably, if you're a Power 5, it's probably harder to fall apart because you're usually, most Power 5 programs are the ones making some less, not Power 5 programs, I should say, fall apart. Like
it's a terrible time.
Mid-major fan.
Oh, terrible time for mid-major. Terrible.
I get that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. If I were a fan of those, I would be very frustrated with what this has turned into. But at the same time, you can still add guys that come down a level, right? But if you develop somebody the way you're supposed to do it, like, does a John Morant stay at Murray State after his freshman year nowadays? Like, big question. Maybe that guy just goes to the pro anyway, but nowadays it's hard to keep that mid-major star. They just want to go up a level. And sometimes it doesn't work out for those guys. Sometimes it does. But I think everyone would say, though, whether you like it or not, it's exciting. It adds a lot of exciting. It adds a lot of work for us, Joey. But it is, I think, for a lot of people, just like NBA, MLB, NFL offseason, it's exciting when you can upgrade your roster and it gives everybody hope that they can.
It's exciting when Terrence Shannon posts that he's going to Illinois, if you're an Illinois fan. Like, that is inherently exciting to have for fans. So yeah, it's college basketball, college football is turning into a 12-month give or take type of deal. Good for those of us in the business of covering college basketball and college football. It's probably exciting for the fans who follow it, probably stressful for the fans who follow it. Welcome to it, man. This is what it is. I don't know how it changes, right? Like, I don't know how the NBA can put this toothpaste back in, or the NCAA can put this toothpaste back in. This, good luck if that's the plan, but it makes for exciting days for fan bases like today with Terrence Shannon.
Yeah, I think you used Josh Whitman's term there. I actually liked his idea of I do think if a player has to stay somewhere for 2 years, right, or they have to sit out if they do transfer, I think that can be beneficial for a lot of kids. And obviously there would be waivers if your coach is fired or whatever. And that's where I think it gets difficult. But I do think there is something to wanting kids to battle through adversity, right? Like I do battle with that, but I also think I struggle because I think kids should be allowed to make mistakes and learn from them. Say they leave and it doesn't work out for them. Well, maybe you learn from that. So I can understand all sides of that, but I don't think it's changing. I think this is going to be the way it is. It's more about what are the timelines with the NBA draft. I think it's just going to be minor tweaks. I don't know if we're going to go back where it's like, okay, you got to stay in place for 2 years. I don't know if that will get changed.
Yeah, especially with NIL. How do you change it? Like, could you be? I don't like. There's any number of arguments to make on that front, but I'm with you, Jeremy. The tweaks to kind of find a way to make this a little more palatable for both sides. And I know, look, a lot of people don't have a lot of sympathy for coaches making buku bucks and who have been making buku bucks for years and years. But
and it's not like there's not going to be coaches to fill these high paying.
I promise you, there's not going to just be this stop where coaches like, oh, I don't know. No, I'm not interested in moving in. Good luck finding a coach to run your program. Somebody will always pick up the phone on the other end of that.
Yeah. All right. For Joey Wagner, I'm Jeremy Werner. Thank you as always for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Go ahead, Joey.
No bike ride.
Oh, yes. We got
no bike ride.
Thank you. We can't get away. I see Brad Underwood's tweets at Joey as a sign of respect. And I just want to point out there that Joey's not in bad shape here, people. Not the worst.
Now I am, but not egregiously, maybe.
But I want to point out, Joey is in a self-improvement mode. He's got a bike. He's been bicycling places. So I just want to give you some moral support here, Joey. But I do enjoy Brad Underwood just being savage on Twitter. I need more in my life.
Just roasting me. The basis of it is I know there's been hand wringing of there's 9 scholarship guys, now 10, obviously, with Terrence Shannon. And the point I tried to make was, I promise you, Brad Underwood and pretty much every coach in America is not going to go into a college basketball season with 9 scholarship guys and 4 of those 9 being true freshmen. That is malpractice. Like, that is not setting yourself up to win.
It's negligence, right?
I put out the bold prediction that if Brad does this, I will ride my bike to every Big Ten road game. On an unrelated note, I don't foresee myself covering a lot of Big Ten road games if that's the case. But I just, this obviously was never going to happen. Today marks that. But Brad did give me a little scare. I don't think anyone else was scared when he said we might leave 2 open, maybe 3. And I thought, oh, Brad, that hurts. That hurts my plans here.
And then we got to the parking lot. Because I had tweeted at you, careful, Underwood may do that out of spite. Because I can see Brad being that kind of guy. So he said, great idea. Joey can use a little exercise to go with his salad, which of course he said to you guys, asking for recommendations during the season. I forgot where you were going, but he said, I can recommend some salad places for you guys.
A+ callback for Brad Underwood, who might be able to moonlight as a stand-up comedian at some point if this is the route he wants to go.
I thought Brad didn't get on Twitter.
Well, I too thought Brad didn't get on Twitter.
That's what he claimed.
It does appear to me that Brad gets on Twitter. And I have the receipts to prove it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. We will await Brad Underwood's next shot at Joey Wagner at some point. I see it as a form of respect, Joey. So I would take that as a compliment. But thank you for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Check us out on YouTube, subscribe to us. And hey, Trevor Valise, I want to shout out him, a new addition to the Illini Inquirer team, doing a lot of stuff with our multimedia channels. You've probably seen a lot more on the YouTube. He's helping us out with the podcast as well. We hope to expand what we do with the podcast, especially during the off season. So it's great to have him on board. He's going to be a great addition to the team. And we're continuing to try and add to our content and Illini coverage here at Illini Inquirer. So check us out at IlliniInquirer.com. Everybody take care of each other. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer podcast.